It is finally International Fight Week, and it is finally, I have waited so long for Ilia Topuria to get back in the octagon. It has been since October that I've waited for Ilia Topuria, my favorite fighter, for his next move, his next matchup, his next opponent, and it is finally here. It is a Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira fight week. This is a huge main event, despite the card itself and the finished product not being that great when it comes to International Fight Week standards. But this fight alone, I am extremely hyped for. And Ilia Topuria is coming for it all. He is coming for legacy. He's coming for greatness. He has a chance right now to become a 2-division UFC champion in a pace beyond like what we thought originally, because with just how things were originally planned out, but it's all happening a lot quicker than anticipated. And when you look at the rest of this card, of course, it's not that great. It doesn't have as big of a pop when it comes to what's supposed to be the Super Bowl for the UFC. There was already a pullout with Manel Kape, and then you had a complete cancellation of a fight with Paulo Costa and Roman Kopylov. But it is what it is. And yeah, this is finally, we were so unsure of what was going to be for this card with less than 50 days to go. Who was going to headline? Is it going to be Islam and Topuria? In the end, it's Charles and Topuria for the vacant lightweight belt once 315 happened. So here we are, UFC 317. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. We got the 2 title fights on the line, and then a good collection. 2 big flyweight fight. No, 2 big flyweight fights. And then the lightweight and bantamweight. So we're going to go into this main card. And then the full card isn't on the UFC's website yet, which I usually like to react using the UFC's website. So we'll then hop on over to Tapology to look at the rest of the prelims, because I'm not down to wait until this entire page is updated to make my fight week video. But let's get into it. And by the way, yes, Jon Jones has retired from the UFC. There could be a separate video on that, but it kind of was expected. I mean, I don't know. I always had the optimism that Jon Jones was going to be fighting Tom Aspinall, but that story has concluded. I'm just ready for Tom Aspinall to move on and fight Cyril Gane. But this video is not about that. It is about Ilia Topuria taking on Charles Oliveira this weekend, June 28th in Las Vegas. Ilia Topuria, do I even need to repeat it again? Do I even need to repeat the trajectory that this guy is on? With the win this coming Saturday, which I believe he is going to do in quick fashion, just like he said, I have no reason to doubt that he is not going to put away Charles Oliveira in the first or second round like he said he would. Because this guy has always backed up what he said. He predicted himself to be the first man to knock out Max Holloway. He predicted himself to be the featherweight champion by beating Volkanovski. Like, Ilia Topuria, if he wins this fight, he will be put on, he's already on such a level, but the UFC will put a jetpack to this guy and bring him to a new level that we may have finally gotten that next Conor McGregor. Because Topuria has it all. He has all the factors you want in a UFC champion. He has, most importantly, the record for it. He's a 16-0 undefeated fighter. He climbed through the ranks of the featherweight division and has now coming off 2 of the best back-to-back wins in the sport. You coming off 2 KO finishes versus Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. He has the charisma, well, maybe not charisma, but like he has the swag. He backs up what he says. He has the level of trash talk with class. He's cocky, but confident. But he actually has the results to show for it by being undefeated and having all the finishes. He's one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. He has some of the crispiest boxing and striking. His power is on another level. Yes, the glaze is going to be crazy in this video, okay? The glaze is going to be crazy. But Topuria, he has all the factors you want in a champion. He knows how to work a mic. He also lives a very luxurious lifestyle in Spain. He has a very special technique. He's presenting himself as the next generation of MMA. The next generation to come into the UFC and show why he's the new face of this company. And he's literally right there to being the next big superstar because he's already huge. He's done so much already in between these last two fights in terms of building up his brand, his name, and just it has like it's always feels like a big fight because if you have to think that in order for an Islam Makhachev massive fight to happen, you need the other side of that, and that would be Topuria. Topuria is a star in his own way. So yeah, and also one of the craziest things about Topuria's game is coming up in the what do you call it? The other promotions that you go into before you get called up to the UFC. He was mostly a submission guy. He was mostly big on like submissions and ground game, which is crazy because the way that we were all introduced to Topuria is he is lethal on the feet. We have not seen, he probably has some of the best striking and power in the UFC. Definitely was at 145. And of course, there are the questions, how will that translate to 155? And I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. Like people are saying, no, Charles Oliveira has a size advantage. He's going to be much bigger. Topuria's power won't translate to 155. I think that's completely false. I think Topuria, if anything, will get more powerful. I think he put on, knowing the guy and the amount of preparation, if you see any of his training camp videos, he knows what he's doing. He's putting on like great muscle, and then he's gonna have probably a much better weight cut, which is the main reason why he moved up to 155 is because the weight cut was too hard for him at 145. So he's gonna come in there hopefully with more like to his power, being that he'll have more leadway because he didn't have to take away as much weight. And Topuria, yeah, legit, like he's going to finish. I really am so confident he's going to finish Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira's only hope really is we're on the ground, but Topuria has a really good ground game, really good base. If you look back earlier in his career, he's had submissions. He submitted Bryce Mitchell, but most of his UFC wins have come by knockout, knocking out one of the greatest chins, the first man to ever knock out Max Holloway, knocked out Volk, whether you want to say that he came back too soon. He teed up Josh Emmett. He had one of his most violent knockouts in his career to Jai Herbert, who was way bigger than Topuria, and did have Topuria knocked down in one moment in that fight, but Topuria came back and delivered one of the sickest knockouts I've ever seen. So yeah, Topuria, this fight right here is going to be the catalyst for him to completely jump to a whole new level, to be the new lightweight champion of the UFC. And we'll see if we'll ever get this Islam Makhachev fight down the line. If we fast forward after this, Topuria, right, lightweight champion, 3 of the best back-to-back wins to backs in the sport. At that point, like, okay, you have the massive fight with Paddy Pimblett in front of you or Arman Tsarukyan. Apparently Hunter Campbell went to Islam and said, look, we want Ilia to be the new champion at 155. So yeah, you can move up to welterweight. That was according to what Umar said. And Islam, according to his camp, we've been hearing a lot. We've been hearing a lot about like what if he's going to retire after winning the welterweight belt. And Ali Abdelaziz says at this point in time he has no thoughts on retirement. Javier Mendez saying maybe his coach is saying maybe he has 3 fights left. But Islam and Topuria recently just said in an interview in the lead up to this that he would chase Islam at 170 if he becomes the champion. Now that's a little crazy. I mean, the UFC to begin with is not crazy on champions jumping divisions to become double belt champs. It's really obvious that Ilia is so confident. He just wants the best of the best, and he sees Islam as that because Islam is the best right now. He's especially with John Jones out of the sport. Islam's the pound for pound in the sport, and Ilia clearly doesn't even care about what title he has to show for. He just wants to beat the number one guy, which is why he would want to jump to 170 right after. But at that point, like, it's so crazy. Topuria's going to be so small in that division. Welterweight's way too crowded right now. It's way too crowded. There's so many guys in line. The fact that even Islam now has jumped that line to get the immediate title shot versus Jack Del Maddalena. Imagine Topuria in that. It's going to get so complicated. Like, Topuria needs to chill right now at 155. First, get your finish versus Charles, get the belt. be the face of this division, and you have two title defenses maybe in Arman Tsarukyan and Paddy Pimblett. I really think Paddy Pimblett and Arman Tsarukyan need to fight to settle that on who should be the next guy up. But knowing the UFC, maybe they'll give Paddy Pimblett the immediate title shot next. I don't know. It's a whole confusion over here. Like, Gaethje is holding out, saying that he won't fight again in the UFC unless it's an immediate title shot. So Gaethje's being very picky right now in his career. Or Paddy, they'll give Paddy to Gaethje because that's a favorable matchup for Paddy, because the UFC knows that's a big money fight if they get Paddy and Topuria. And Topuria, I would love to see that fight also. So back to this fight, though. I'm getting sidetracked, but yeah, Topuria, it's simple. It's simple. First round or second round KO to Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is way too open in terms of being able to get hit on the feet. I think Topuria, with his technique, his style, he clearly knows how to break fighters down, how to stalk them down, use combinations. Topuria maybe uses some leg kicks, but he also has that good ground game. Charles Oliveira, his only chance is on the ground, being the dangerous submission guy that he is. We know he's one of the most dangerous finishers in the UFC. Charles Oliveira has stepped in there with some of the best, had one of the best title reigns in lightweight history. He's probably a top 3 lightweight champion of all time, or top 5 for sure. We know he's beat Michael Chandler twice, had Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. He's coming off the win versus Michael Chandler. Was it the best win? Not necessarily, but he's one of the best names you could put in this position to fight Ilia Topuria. By the way, I love that Arman Tsarukyan is the backup. That's great to have him. Glad the UFC came to their senses there to put him as the backup so he could be ready to go. But if I had to pick, I would love it if Charles Oliveira did happen to fall out, so that way it could be Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan. That's a sick fight. And then in that case, I don't even know like who would win that. Like, I mean, I'm still riding with Topuria, but I think it's a lot more of a closer fight. I just think Charles Oliveira is a little bit past his prime, and I think that Topuria is gonna catch him. I don't see how Charles Oliveira will withstand many shots from Topuria. Topuria's power is ridiculous, and Charles unfortunately doesn't have much of a chin when he's getting phased by guys like Michael Chandler. I mean, so Topuria, I expect Topuria to piece him up, and I expect a dominant fight from Topuria. That's it. There's nothing else to say. Like, I love Charles Oliveira. I hope that he'll stick around a little bit more in the sport after this fight, because if he loses, I don't know how he'll probably get himself to another title shot. He's had many chances. So we'll just have to see where his direction would go, but he's still one of the most legendary fighters. But this is all just for Topuria's story, right? This is so bigger fights can be set up in the future. For Topuria to now become the lightweight champion, rep that strap, and then rack up a few more title defenses. People could say what they want. Oh yeah, Topuria ran away from 145. Nobody was beating him at 145, bro. He was not losing to Diego Lopez. And even Movsar. Like, Topuria, just the way his career has gone so far has been picture perfect. Undefeated. A couple exciting finishes to build your way up in the UFC. Pretty much all finishes. Beats Zalal in a decision. Goes up, knocks out Jackson. Hall. Herbert. Displays a submission versus Mitchell. Pretty dominant performance versus Emmett. And then his last 2 wins right here were ridiculous. Second round KO versus one of the greatest featherweights of all time, Volkanovski. And Topuria KOs the second best featherweight in Max Holloway. Just a picture-perfect career right now for Ilia Topuria. So he's on a massive path right now to becoming the next big superstar. And he has all the components. He's not like a Sean O'Malley. Topuria has the aura. He has the levels to take it all the way and be that next big thing. So that's what I'm rocking with. Topuria to finish Charles Oliveira within the first 2 rounds. And yeah, that's that. Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. Finally a fresh matchup for Pantoja. Pantoja has been running laps versus in the flyweight division. 29-5, extremely well-rounded Brazilian fighter. He has like a marauder type fight style. As we know, he's coming off the win versus Kaya Sakura, which was a second round submission versus debuting just because the UFC was running out of options for him because he beat Steve Erceg for the second time, Brandon Royval for the second time, Moreno, Perez, Royval, Cop. He's done everyone. Pantoja. And while it is a fresh and intriguing matchup within Kai Kara France, who's coming off a nice KO win versus Erceg back at 305, this is easy to pick. You got to rock with Pantoja. You got to just rock with Pantoja. Whether it goes to decision, although I do think Pantoja submits him in a 5-round fight, I could see Pantoja finally finding a submission. I mean, unless Kai Kara France really gets lucky and somehow gets something good on the feet. This is a cool co-main event. I like it. Just a fresh matchup. Get this out of the way now with Pantoja. And if Pantoja wins again, I really think we could get Pantoja and Merab in the future. I really think so. I think those two could get talked into fighting each other. Because at that point, what can you do? You'll have to now wait for Merab to fight Sanhagen. But that could be a super intriguing and massive fight in the future. And Pantoja's on it. Like, if Pantoja wins this too, you could probably already call him. I don't know. I could see there still being debates between him and Mighty Mouse, but Pantoja's 1 or 2 wins away, especially if he defends now and then beats Merab. He's one of the best. He's definitely the flyweight GOAT. He's definitely the flyweight. Merab pretty much is the bantamweight GOAT. Pantoja's for sure top 2 of all time if he beats Kai Kara France. He already is, I think. I think it's hard to dispute that. And Pantoja, he might not be the most flashy or entertaining. It's hard to be flashy and entertaining at flyweight. These are the little guys of the division. They don't get much credit. They're usually are the co-main event title fights, but Pantoja reps this division really nicely. So, Pantoja by submission, not really, but not going to pick a specific round really, versus Kai Kara France. Joshua Van. 3 weeks notice. This guy has been ridiculously active this year. I don't even know the exact number of fights that he's packed in, but he is fighting super consistently. Fought at 311. Fought at 310. Fought at 316. This is a huge jump up, though. This is a huge jump up for Joshua Van. My boys are loving Joshua Van right now. Only 23 years old. Nuts. And he's doing things like this. But he's coming off the really dominant KO TKO finish versus Bruno Silva at 316. 2 days later, gets the call up to fight the number 1 guy in the division in Brandon Royval because Manel Cap pulled out after fracturing his foot. Now, it is a shame to lose Cap off this card because it would have been fun to see Cap also go at Kai Kara France in the presser. We know that is one of the most heated rivalries one of the most genuinely heated rivalries that we have in the UFC. So that kind of sucks because that could have led to a future fight had Kai Kara France won and Manel Cap. No doubt that would have been the next fight. But Brandon Royval, he's good. He's really coming on a second wind here after beating Tatuso Taira in the Apex. And he beat Brandon Moreno. So since losing to Pantoja, he's on a 2-fight win streak. And, he's good. He's good. And, I'm just going to go with Brandon Royval. I just think Joshua Van has jumped into this a little bit way too quickly. And I don't think fully, but I strongly believe that Joshua Van's going to be checked here by Brandon Royval. I just think to go from the number, I don't even know what number Bruno Silva was, but to the number 1 guy and Brandon Royval is a huge jump up on 3 weeks notice. And I just think that this is where Joshua Van's hype comes to a halt a little bit. But I could still see Joshua Van making some noise, having some cool combos, because Joshua Van's fast on the feet. But Brandon Royval's really good. And I think Brandon Royval is going to hold his own here versus the up-and-coming, quick prospect to contender in Joshua Van. I mean, if Joshua Van pulls this off, that's just savage. To come in on 3 weeks' notice, take out the number one guy, and this quick, that would be crazy. So I'm picking Brandon Royval. Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. This fight rebooked. Renato Moicano, always a fun personality on these cards. Coming off the short notice title fight versus the pound for pound fighter in the world. Can't really count that against him. If you remember before that, Renato Moicano was coming off the win versus Benoit Saint Denis, Jalen Turner. So Renato Moicano, I picked him to win this fight versus Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush, if he loses the fight, he'll probably retire. I'm going to go with Renato Moicano, though. Because, yeah, I'm not going to feel like Renato Moicano, just because he lost to the number one pound for pound fighter on a day's notice, is not, like, going to win this fight versus Beneil Dariush. I think it's pretty even, though. It could go either way, honestly. So, picking Renato Moicano. And then this was a really sick fight to add onto the card. Probably the best prospect fight you could make in the UFC right now, between Payton Talbott and Felipe Lima. I haven't really watched Felipe Lima, but I hear he's supposed to be like really amazing. Lucas Tracy calls him like the Dustin Poirier of the bantamweight division, and he kind of looks like him. Then you have Payton Talbott, one of the most hyped up prospects, coming to his last fight versus Ronnie Barcelos. People were calling him the next Sean O'Malley. Flashy striker who had a really nice KO in 303 that really started making some noise, but comes in and gets immediately checked by Ronnie Barcelos, who's like over 40 years old. But that kind of, Ronnie Barcelos just came off another win versus Cody Garbrandt, but still, Payton Talbott, he had all this hype on him. He received a lot of criticism, a lot of backlash from that fight. He lost his O, and again, that's why I'm calling this questionable matchmaking, because knowing the UFC, usually they like to maybe give this guy a layup to kind of bounce him back, get him back in the win column. They're trying to build up like new bantamweight stars. You don't want them to go like quickly plummeting with their hype. But not with this matchup, because the UFC is clearly showing, listen, we're putting you up against another one of the like most up and coming hungry and elite prospects we got in Felipe Lima. This is no easy fight or layup for Payton Talbott. This is prospect versus big prospect going at it. And I don't think Payton Talbott, if he gets another loss, which honestly I'm picking Felipe Lima, but Payton Talbott gets another loss, then his hype is for sure dead. And I think then everyone could say fraud checked, but I mean, Payton Talbot's always has that KO and puncher's chance, just like a Sean O'Malley, but he has no ground game or takedown defense. If he gets taken on that ground again, he's going to be dominated. He's going to be controlled. And I'm not really sure Felipe Lima has that in his game, or if he's going to trade shots with him on the feet. But Payton Talbott, I think, is super talented on the feet and will always have a great chance at knocking someone out if it stays on the feet. But again, sick fight. This would for sure have been a featured prelim had Costa and Kopylov not falling off the card. So Felipe Lima versus Payton Talbot, sick prospect fight. I'm picking Felipe Lima, though, to beat Payton Talbot. And then we'll hop over to Tapology, because the rest of the fights are not fully on the UFC's website yet. Just going to go a little quicker now with my picks. RoboCop versus Jack Hermansson. RoboCop coming off the loss versus Cannonier. I think Jack Hermansson, what was his last win? Was it Joe Pyfer? Let me see real quick. Yeah, his last one was versus Joe Pyfer, the Joker. I'm going to go with Jack Hermansson, but RoboCop's huge. I'm going to go with Hyder Hamill beating Jose Delgado. Tracy Cortez to beat Viviana Araújo. Terrence McKinney versus Vishlav Borshev. I'm going to have Terrence McKinney on a second straight KO finish. I think he's going to KO and finish Borshev. And then don't really care about this fight with Cedric Dumas and Jackson McVeigh. Juanata Diniz, I have him to beat Alvin Hines. And then Jacoby Smith to beat Nico Price. Jacoby Smith also a talked about new prospect. Undefeated at welterweight. So really good prelims for a fight card. Like I think the prelims are pretty much like awesome. It's just the main card that's a little underwhelming for such a event like UFC 317 International Fight Week. But either way, guys, in the co-main event, I got Pantoja submitting Kai Kara-France, and I have Ilia Topuria finishing Charles Oliveira within the first 2 rounds. And when he does do it, just be ready for it, okay? Just be ready. He's gonna be coming. He's gonna be on a whole new level, and this is only another just little stepping stone for Topuria to become the next big thing of the UFC. Like after this, it's gonna be another highlight showcase KO versus Charles Oliveira that's gonna have everyone's jaws on the floor, and just super excited. Cannot wait for this to come, and yeah, gonna be a phenomenal night of fights.